I'm Terry Rhodes, Vice President for Quality Curriculum and Assessment at the Association of American Colleges and Universities. We welcome you to the first in our series of Next Generation WebBite interviews with the leaders of each of the 7 regional accrediting bodies in the United States. We asked each leader what they've been hearing from their member campuses during the pandemic related to 2 critical areas: the campus climate for assessment on those campuses, and what expectations the accreditors have for useful evidence of student learning going forward. Here we speak with Laura Gambino from the New England Commission of Higher Education.
Hi everyone and welcome. I'm Tammy Cumming. I'm the Assistant Vice President and Associate Provost for Institutional Effectiveness at Brooklyn College of the City University of New York. Today I'm serving as co-host where we talk about next generation of assessment from the accreditor point of view.
And I'm David Miller from the University of Florida, where I'm a professor in research and evaluation methods and the director of the School of Human Development and Organizational Studies and Education. And today we're glad to have with us Laura Gambino with the New England Commission of Higher Education.
Hi everyone, as David said, I'm Laura Gambino. I am a Vice President for the New England Commission of Higher Education, or NECHI.
Thanks so much, Laura, for joining us, and a former CUNY colleague, I might add. So we're really excited that you took the time to talk to us today. What we're interested in really getting an idea of what has been the reaction of institutions to assessment and accreditation requirements, giving this abrupt transition to a remote learning, working, teaching environment. And then we wanted to talk a little bit about what you see moving forward with respect to assessment. But we wanted to start with the first issue. What's the climate out there? What is your point of view with respect to accreditation requirements, and particularly the reaction of institutions with respect to assessment requirements in this environment?
Yeah, excellent question. So I'm going to start with maybe the latter part of that and what we see from institutions. And first of all, I think all institutions in my region and beyond have done just an amazing job of making that pivot to remote and distance education as quickly as they could, and in a way that students could have the best learning experience possible. So I think it's been incredibly heartening to watch that. But I think what's happened as a result of this move in terms of assessment is that it's really raised or heightened the awareness of the importance of assessing the student learning experience. And what we're seeing with institutions is that they're starting to pay more attention to the impact that these new remote and distance modalities, which may be new for some, not for everyone, of course, but the impact that these new modalities are having on the student learning experience. And so I think that's been wonderful that we have this heightened attention. And I think if I would go down kind of one more level, I think what we hear from institutions a lot is there's also, as they're thinking about assessment, an increased focus on equity. Institutions are really aware that they need to make sure all students are learning, whatever those subpopulations of students may be at the different ranges, at the range of institutions we have, but really thinking about making sure all students are learning in this new modality. And so I think that's been really, it's good for the field, and it's good for students and institutions moving forward.
Thank you. That's a nice perspective on things, and it's good to see that we're going to have this heightened awareness. I think we're all seeing a bit of that. The impact kind of issue, though, and how this equity is going to be realized in the future, of course, is going to be interesting to watch. So I was just kind of wondering, do you have some some idea about what you expect the role of assessment to be in that? Is it going to be a changed role? I would assume that it would be in some ways. And if so, what are some of the major changes we might expect in the role of assessment?
Well, as we're thinking about assessment and we have this heightened awareness, I think it's just going to continue to play an increasing role as institutions think about different types of modalities moving forward, and maybe trying out different things and understanding what works and what doesn't, and what works and what doesn't for different types of students and different subgroups and different student populations. So I think we're going to continue to see assessment play out at different levels. So for faculty, it might be thinking about, well, how can I change what I'm doing in my course ensure students are learning in this new modality. We might, institutions might be thinking about it at the program level in terms of, well, what does this mean across a series of courses as we look to, you know, remote or distance or some hybrid combination of that. And at the institution level, as institutions think moving forward about how they can continue to be innovative and build on what works, the role that assessment will play and its connection to strategic planning and allocation of institutional resources, it's just going to continue to increase. And I think I was really glad to hear you, David, use the word impact, because I think what we want to be thinking about is the impact of all of these changes on student learning, right? At NET2, we talk a lot about, you know, we used to have institutions focus on kind of the inputs, and then we kind of shifted our focus to, well, what is the process? And now we encourage our institutions, and we'll continue to encourage them to move in the direction of focusing on impact and outcomes, right? So as we're making changes, what is the outcome on student learning? And so I think assessment is going to continue to grow in importance. And so for institutions that, and faculty and student affairs educators, finding ways that we can get the assessment data into the hands of the people that need to use it in a timely manner and in a way that's going to be useful to them. So there's no easy way to do this. I think it's going to be a lot of work for institutions, but it's important and essential work as we live in this new environment if we want to ensure that all of our students are learning.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right about this, Laura. I think that we are going to be focused more on the impact in this next generation of assessment, that the responsibilities are not going away, even though some institutions are a little more resource challenged than in the past in trying to address COVID-19 issues that came about in moving everything to a remote environment. But as you mentioned, the work continues and we have the tools to do it, and institutions will rise to the challenge.
Absolutely, I fully agree.
I think it's also interesting that you bring up the idea that impact is going to become quite a multi-level issue if it isn't already. That is the programs, the universities, the accrediting agencies. Everyone's going to have to rethink this in new and different ways. So I think a lot of excitement to what will be happening here.
And the days of an assessment officer doing all of the work, those have gone away. As you mentioned, the data has to be in the user's hands so that they can move on that information and make an impact, as you mentioned. And I think that we're going to see a transition where it's owned by the faculty and the administration, which is where we want to be.
Exactly. And, you know, I think what we've seen is institutions can rise to the occasion when they need to be. We learned that, you know, over the course of the spring, and I think I'm very confident that they'll continue to rise to the occasion, because really what this is all about is student learning, and that's what everyone at an institution of higher ed wants to focus on. So if we can continue to do that, I think everyone will be served well moving forward.
This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much, Laura, for joining us. I think that the people watching are going to really get a lot out of this conversation.
I would agree. Thank you much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.